So if you're running a Windows machine or if you're running a Mac, you have to download the appropriate client, but it has to be the Pulse Secure client from the website. You can't go to the Pulse Secure website and download the generic one. It has to be this one. When you click on it, I'm running a Windows 64-bit processor or machine. It's going to download into your default download folder. Mine is downloads, and then you're going to run the install. I already have this installed. Once it's in, it's going to show up in your start menu as Pulse Secure. I literally use all of the generic installation options. So anybody who hasn't done this, now's your chance. So connect in. So we'll go into week 1, open up the remote access labs instruction and click on this IT Conestoga remote access link and navigate to this. I'll give you guys some time to do that. Yes. So it should have been. Let me see here. That's loading. That's weird. So this is why I asked earlier. So this is the name of the group that I sent the request from. And yesterday there was the 15 or 16 guest members, but there's none there now. Oh, there's 14. So is that your email address?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. So then it should be there.
Yeah, I haven't got anything yet. I'll check again though.
Maybe it ended up in a junk folder. Yeah, this is again my first 2 classes I'm teaching, so I'm not sure what works and what is, I don't know. IT's phenomenal to work with too. They're all, yeah. I'll leave it at that. Anybody who didn't get this set up yesterday, are you guys working through this? You having any issues? We good to try the next step?
I got all sorts of issues.
Ah,
This is Martin. You said you sent something to my
no,
email?
no.
Oh,
So,
okay. So I'm looking in the wrong spot. Don't worry.
okay, yeah. So, if you go to your D2L page, so this one,
So you're minimized. I'm in a different screen right now. It's the remote computer lab is where I want to go, right?
yeah. So remote access lab instructions. Sorry, I always forget that most people don't have 3 monitors like I do because I'm a maniac.
Yeah, I had 3 monitors at work. I've never had 3 monitors at home.
Yeah.
So
I know,
hold on,
right?
I've got 40 computers available.
Okay.
I'm
Yes.
probably in the wrong screen.
Yeah. So you're a step ahead of where we need to be. So you're looking for a document that's called remote access lab instructions.
Yeah, I'm there.
All right. So then there's a link to IT Conestoga support where to find and download the Pulse Secure VPN client. So when you click on the remote computer lab access under step 1, it says you must have the Pulse Secure. If you click on this link here, it'll bring us to where you can download it. So you need to download it for your version of Windows. So if you have Windows 10, is anybody using Windows 11?
I don't have Windows set up on this computer.
No? Okay. All right. Well, if you're using Mac or I don't know if there's one that runs on Linux. Are you running Linux?
I'm not running anything.
No, your operating system?
Yeah, I don't have Microsoft on. I had originally when I bought the computer, I had Microsoft on it. Now I don't have Microsoft on it. So
Okay, but is it like a Windows like 10? Is it a Mac?
Oh no, it's a Windows, like it's a regular computer, not a Mac.
Okay.
It is installing.
Okay, perfect.
Hey Ryan,
Hey,
sorry. Uh, from on my eConestoga, it does not show up for me. The week 1 does not show up. I am in the course, but it just does not show up for me on my content. So I'm not sure if there's any specific restriction or something for me, or I'm not enrolled into it. I'm just not sure, but it just doesn't appear for me.
You're enrolled. You're in the class list. So click the home button in the top left of eConestoga.
yeah. So if you click here,
Yeah.
and then it's the 1351.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Content.
Yep.
You don't have a week 1?
No, I don't have a week 1. I only have up to Alan Bradley lab tips and templates, and that's about it. I do not see a week 1 PLC HMI.
Huh. But okay, Janessa can't see it either.
Oh, I have to finish the quiz.
Have you completed that quiz yet?
No, have not. That's why.
That looks new to me, and I think my chair might have added that in to force you guys to fill that out.
Yeah, now it shows up. Yeah, it was the quiz. The quiz is the filter.
Wonderful. So Janessa, you might also have to fill out that quiz. I'm not sure if you were here for that. So if you go content, you're okay, perfect. So Martin, Stephen, you having luck with installing the VPN client? I don't mean to call you out. You're just not in
Oh
my.
yeah, no. I'm just looking at my Condor ID here through my email.
So your Condor ID is going to be your email address
Mhm.
without the @conestogac.on.ca.
Okay. Yeah.
So it'll be like a Stephen, or no, it'd be S Allen, the last 4 digits of your student number.
Mhm.
So I've got Pulse Secure there, but it says it's got no connections. How do I?
Yep, perfect. So the next step there is we're going to click add, and then it's going to pull up a configuration window, and you need to fill out. You have to create one called Conestoga VPN, and then where it says server URL, you have to enter what is on the website, or I just pasted it into the chat.
Perfect.
So when you do connect, and this is something that was caught yesterday, to save your credentials, it's your Condor ID, but without the conestogac.on.ca, but it's the same password you would use to log into the eConestoga or your email.
Where's the chat? Oh.
Sorry, there's a crisis with my 4-year-old. I'm going to mute for a bit. So then once you've got the VPN connection added in and you're connected, in the taskbar, which is the bottom of your screen, you'll see the icon. Sorry. I've moused over it. It's an S with a green arrow going up. That'll tell you you're connected into the network. Sorry, I'm gonna mute again.
So I am connected into the network. Where do we go anywhere from here? Or?
Yes. So we're connected on now. Now, once that's up, you're on the college network. So there's a number of things you can do Again, here it says the top 3 uses for this VPN is to access your internal S drives. So there's some, excuse me, on the screen here, you can see some directions as to accessing your data online. We don't need that right now, but it is super useful if you have stored anything, or if you're working on the open access computers and transfer files into your S drive, you can then access them from home. So when we go, if we go back to the remote computer lab access page, which I've pulled up, we've completed step 1. We've installed the Pulse Secure VPN client. Once you're connected in, we're going to click on the remote computers lab link here. So this remote computers link lists all of the available computers for remote access across a number of different facilities. What we want are the Cambridge open access machines. So this group of 15 computers, it was more computers last night. I'm guessing that means that some of you guys are already logged on and they're removed from the list. These computers are the ones that have the software that we're going to need, the PLC software. When you click on one of these connects, it's going to say, hey, do you want to download this file? You do. This file that we're downloading. Oh, let me skip back here. Will also show up in your downloads folder. Mine showed up with a 1 because I downloaded the exact same one last night. What this is a remote desktop shortcut. So once you download that and you click on it, it's going to try to remote onto that machine. And what's happened to me will likely happen to you if you're using a personal machine. So you need to be wary of this. Right now, it's trying to log me into this account with my personal Hotmail address, and that won't work. So you need to click on, if that happens, you need to click on more options and select a different user. And this is where we're going to log in. So here you need to use your Conestoga email address to log in. And your password. If you click remember me, it may remember for a day or 2. I'm trying it. I didn't do it yesterday. You click OK. And now you're connecting into a virtual machine on one of the servers at the college. The first time you log in every day, it'll take a while to load up your profile. I've had it take almost 5 minutes once. It's normally a couple of minutes. While this loads up, I'm gonna take a quick break, use the washroom, and oh, another user is signed in. Okay, so if you get this message, it means that another student or teacher is using the machine you picked to connect into. Another user is signed in. If you click yes, you're going to log them out. That's not cool. Click no. And then back on this page, just pick another machine at random and try again. While this loads, I'm just gonna step away, use the washroom. I'll be right back. All right. So is anybody not connected in?
I'm not connected in. It says my credentials did not work.
Hmm.
Oh, that's why. Shoot, now I can't. I'll go back to more choices. First time I didn't put Conestoga C, and the second time I didn't put the last 4 digits of my student number. Another user is signed in. If you continue, they'll be disconnected.
Yeah, so I hit no and then try a different RDP link. Seems to be the luck of the draw. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. There's 11 of us trying to connect in, and it says only 15 computers. So I'm not sure how to There is. It's a pretty easy one. In my opinion, sorry. Um. Sorry.
Oh,
Success or the computer in use.
still working on it.
Steven, have you been able to connect in?
Yes, I'm connected in.
It looks like I'm going to be connected in shortly. Please wait for user profile service instead of there's another user online. Do you want to kick
Okay.
them out?
I'm curious if there's a way to monitor to see which ones are available. Because
Why don't you just assign each one of us a number?
I can try to do that. For next time. Figure that out. The only flaw I see with that idea is since these are open to anyone, if there's somebody outside of the program or somebody from one of the other nights doing their assignments tonight, that machine there would be a machine in use, but it does look like as long as there's not like 6 people, because it says 15 computers. I thought that said 23 yesterday, but maybe I'm.
If you refresh the page, it should update how many are available.
Well, there we go. Wow, technology. F5 to update or refresh. Was that Vincent? No, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so if you hit F5, you're in now. Everyone's in?
Yep.
Wonderful. All right. So that's pretty much lab 1. I believe. Connect in. I was having issues with my computer here. Okay, so this is lab 1. So introduction to PLC programming. Sorry, this is the reading material. All right, so this is a reading material. I'm going to go through kind of what this reading material is. As for navigating the software, it goes into different types of limit switches, different types of proximity sensors, especially anybody who was in the class yesterday. These are going to be your digital inputs. These cylinders, they'd be digital outputs if you're controlling them, digital inputs coming in. Motors are digital outputs, lights are digital outputs. But this reading material kind of covers the basics of that, the basics of navigating the software, how to read your digital inputs. I'm going to open up the lab, which I thought I had opened. There we go. All right, so the lab, which is due Tuesday, along with the short quiz on the D2L, it's going to cover the fundamentals of going online with a PLC, testing inputs. Let me make sure I'm still recording. And outputs, and ensuring your simulator is running. So step one is log into one of these remote access computers. So that's why I wanted to make sure everybody could get in, because unless you've got the PLC software on a computer at home, you're eugered. So in the folder that I was talking about, the Allen Bradley lab tips and templates, we're going to download the Allen Bradley PLC lab simulator submodule. So these specifically. So let's go and find those. Sorry, I'm going to move my document to another monitor. So the Allen Bradley PLC lab simulator, and it says a 2148 lab simulator PLC stations 1 through 8. Down. So ACD, this is your PLC program file. It says to download the 2148 visual interface and the APA. So this is your HMI. I will show you those shortly. And then it points you to lab tip 3 and 5. So downloading to a PLC, you can download that. Starting the simulator, download that as well. For reading, I'm going to go through this lab first with you guys, and then I'm going to let you guys do your own thing. Okay. So while you're connected to these open access computers, whoops, that's not where it downloaded. So these are the documents that I just downloaded. If you select them on your host machine, which is your local machine, your computer, copy, click on the desktop of the remote machine and paste, it will show up on the desktop. So we've got the lab tip, and then you'll notice the APA shows up looking like that, and the ACD shows up looking like that. Where on my computer, they will likely look like unknown file types. I don't have the programming software on this machine, so my computer doesn't know what to do with them. Any questions so far? Okay. So
Do I always have to sign out of the VM to go to my personal screen or what?
you don't need to sign out. So I'm working with multiple monitors, but if you don't have multiple monitors up here, okay, so that is super irritating. Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see it, but my Zoom stuff is popping up over top of this. This tab is your remote desktop. If you can see it in the top, it means this is your remote, like the remote session. You can click this pin and it'll actually minimize or maximize that. It doesn't look like it's actually changing. Neat. There, it's unpinned, so that should go away after a timeout. But if you want to minimize your remote session, click this. Your remote session will go away, and then you should be able to see your desktop. And then in your taskbar, your remote session is still here. So I wouldn't sign in and out if you can avoid it. Also, it warns you here and a few other places, do not leave anything on these machines and expect it to be there the next time you log in. Every single day and every time these machines are restarted, they are completely wiped. So if you are going to log out of a machine, or you're logged into a machine and you get kicked off, or you lose your internet connection, you can come back and log back in as long as nobody's reset the machine. So if you go like this to log out and you hit restart and you restart this VM, it's going to erase everything that you've done. So you'll lose all of your work no matter what you've done to it if you haven't saved it somewhere else. So if you do need to save something, it's already a copy. If you do have a PLC file or something on here that you want to save, you can copy it off of the desktop and then paste it onto your desktop. Where'd it go? Here. Get it out. That way, I've lost data. I actually lost data this week doing work. It's a terrible feeling. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so double clicking on the PLC program will open it. So this is the PLC program. When you've opened it, what you're looking at here on the left-hand side, this is your program tree. You've got controller tags. So If you've ever used the Logix 500 stuff, I know I was showing some of you guys yesterday, or even some of the older Siemens and Omron controllers, you use register files, integer files, Boolean files, timing files. The Logix 5000 system is a tag-based system. So these tags actually have names. So you can call them anything. We've got a TP, and it has a data type of touch panel. 064 is a single integer. So you don't have to have something called B4, Boolean data table 4, for it to be Boolean. You can call it unique written text words, and then you assign the data type to them. The only rule is you can't start with a number. So it has to be, it's alpha underscore, or, and then you can have numbers. You just can't start with a number. If you need to add a tag inside the controller tags, you've got monitor, and then you've got edit. So you can select between them here, and you can just add as you type here, tag to add, and click on data type. You can change it to whatever you want. You want it to be a real value, you want it to be an integer, you want it to be a double integer, you want it to be date, time. There's a huge pull down list of all the different data types that are available to you. When you're offline, you can pick whatever you want. And if you get it wrong, you get it wrong and you can change it. If you're online, you can't change the data type. I'm gonna delete that. Not gonna delete that. So as we're looking in here, yesterday we were talking about digital inputs and IO lists. So if you're dealing with PLC programs, you have electrical drawings for the PLC, but you also have IO lists. So that's going to be a listing of your digital inputs, digital outputs, analog inputs, analog outputs. So how we identify those in control logics are here. So we have the local section. So anything that starts with a local, anything that starts with an Ethernet, this is where the cards, the actual analog cards are defined. And you can also see here in the program tree, if you scroll down to the bottom, you can see the processor configuration. So we've got a 10 slot backplane. We've got the emulated the emulated processor. We've got a DC input card, DC output card, analog input card, analog output card. These are going to line up here. So we've got local. So this is the backplane. So local 2 input. So the local :2:C. This is a control configuration file for that card, and the I is the information. So this is the input data. This is where you can see, if you go to monitor, you can see the status of all the digital inputs. If you go to the outputs, so local 3. Yes.
Good night.
Good night.
Hello.
I love you. So local 3 output data, you can see the status of those outputs. Does that make sense? Am I going too fast? Do you see how you
Hey,
can?
Ryan?
Oh, hey,
Sorry.
Yep.
You said a local 2C is just like the config file for that rack, or is it like a config file for like that specific slot?
that specific card. So depending on the cards you have, there could be different enables and disables. So let's see here. So this analog input card, so it's on 4. When you look at these configuration filters, you can look at whether the filters for the inputs have been enabled, some timing, and you can look at all the different channel enables. So you can look at them in here in this drop down list. Most of the time, it's a little easier to figure out what you're looking at if you go into the card. So I did that pretty fast, but if you go to the card, right click on it and go properties, especially for analog cards, you can get a lot of information here. So you know the name of the card, manufacturer of the card, parent just means what rack is it in, the local rack or an Ethernet rack, or a remote rack connected by Ethernet or some other comms protocol, and which slot it's in. This is about the firmware revision of the card. That information should only really ever be changed if you have a physical card in your hand. If it needs to be changed, most of the time, it'll be fine. Connection, you can see here, it says inhibit module. This is likely only done for testing. Inhibit module means it's not actually running. It'll prevent some errors in the code. You've got some module information. It's blank because we're offline, but then you can get into the real-time syncing and filtering for each one of the channels and configurations for the channels. So all the information that you can see here, pick whether it's going to be a voltage input, a milliamp input. You can change some of the range information for how it interprets the incoming data. And you can even push some of those signals right into an engineering units. So instead of looking at 4 to 20 milliamps, you could set it to be a percentage. You could set it to be an RPM for a pump and go 0 to like, what is it? 1860. So you can do some changes for each one of the inputs depending on what it may or may not be connected to. And then the information for the card configuration, that will also show up. It doesn't like what I did. Yeah, it says milliamp, so it wants 4 to 20. What did that say? Oh, it's backwards. He is reading what you're looking at. And then we go back to the card. And that information will show up there. Does that make sense?
Is that going to be in our notes too? So I can go over it?
No, that's pretty advanced, but there's a lot of information. What's in the notes and in the lab is just how to look at where the local cards are, how to navigate the controller tags. That aside was kind of a bonus, and we will touch that later in the course on how to configure cards, but it is good information to have. So in any of these menus, anytime you see a data type with a plus, it means you can expand it. And then you can, on the tree over here, under main task, you can open up some logic. So there's not any logic changes today, but you can dig around inside of the logic here. So it's an overview on how to look at and monitor, edit some tags in the code. If we go back to, this is your HMI interface. So by double clicking on it, it's going to launch simulation mode of sorry, it's restoring it first. So it's going to launch in a simulator, the touch screen for the PLC code. Or for the assembly line that's been put together for the lab today. And again, I'm following along with this document. So we went through how to look between the different tags, how to navigate through the controller tags, the difference between monitor and editing tags. And I'm just waiting for this software to launch. It's gonna be a pain. All right, wonderful. So I'm just trying to see if I skipped a step in this lab. Oh, there must be a lab tip. So there's a lab tip in here specifically about downloading to the PLC. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second. You download the AIO tag too. I haven't downloaded anything, the AIO tag from the website. I didn't. This one? Yeah, that's that one, isn't it? Sorry, this reinforces the importance of reading the documentation. I apologize. So the other lab tech tip is about getting the software running. So one of the things, the HMI running. So the APA file, which you're going to download, it's actually a backup file. So when I double clicked on it, it opened up a utility and it extracted it. And it loaded it into the standard folder for Factory Talk View Studio Machine Edition, which I launched by just starting to type in Factory Talk View Studio. And then it opened up this. So you don't want Site Edition, you want the Machine Edition, which I've already launched. And then open application. It automatically exported my file here. So I'm just opening that now. All right, and then just hit yes. It looks like they've, yeah, there's a newer version of the software on these machines than that was built in. You're almost always good to go forward, but not necessarily good to go backwards. Sorry, is everybody following? Did I confuse people at all?
Yeah, maybe lost.
Okay, so
I'm confused too.
okay, so I'll explain what. So I've downloaded the lab tips and the PLC file and this visual interface. There's an IO folder, as IO drawing as well. Whoops. To download for the stations that Martin pointed out. Once I've transferred those to the open access machines, I opened up the PLC program and I was going through the lab, just showing you where it points out a bunch of the information that you need to be able to look at. So I was showing you where you can expand inside the controller tags here to find and monitor information. And then I took the interface file and I extracted it, and now I've run it inside lab tip 5. It details, it goes into more detail for taking the station, so taking the ACD file for the PLC, starting the emulate processor, which I'm about to do, and then taking the APA file and then opening it on your machine. It tells you to rename that APA file. I didn't, I just left it as a default file, but you guys will need to rename that file as yours if you're going to be making any changes to it. I don't believe there's any changes required for this particular lab, just that you've extracted the file and run it with your name. That's enough. Just proof that you've managed to get online with it and see some things. Once you've extracted that APA file into Factory Talk View Studio Machine Edition, we're going to start the interface. So with the interface here, we're going to test the application. So Factory Talk View Studio has just a very brief overview. This is where all the displays are that would be configured to point at the PLC information. So when you guys was talking about using Wonderware, the Toyo Pack machines at Toyota, they've got touch screens, panel views, quick panels, red line touch screens. They're all HMIs, human machine interface. So they are a way of getting graphical information out of the PLC through communications to connect to the PLC. So here, this interface is now running, and this is what it'll look like if you don't have a PLC program running. There's alarms all over the place. So we're gonna minimize this, and we're gonna download to the emulator. So if we open up the Rockwell software here, Studio 5000 emulate. Yeah. That's interesting. Is somebody else already running emulator? Just let me know. There might be a limit of the number of instances that are allowed to run at any time. That's weird. No. That's not me. Sorry, I'm just trying to load up the software, and it says it's already being run by somebody else. So bear with me while I fight with the computer.
Hey, Ryan,
Hey,
try and open it again because I got the same error, and then try it again and mine opened. No? Weird.
I agree. I'm just gonna close all my stuff.
That's weird.
So, one of the super fun things about PLCs is licensing, which is way beyond the scope of this class. But licensing can run in seats. So that means that you could own 10 licenses, but if they're seat-based, only 10 people can run it at any given time. I'm not sure the licensing that they have. No, that's not gonna work. Is anybody, okay, so is anybody running it? I know one of you guys said you were. Is everybody running it, working ahead of me? Okay. Well, without that working, I am not sure what I can do. Wow, thanks so much. So it sees it. Or not. Another user is already actually using it. All right, well, that puts a damper on my demonstration. So I'm at I'm gonna try to restart this machine and see if that frees up something. Because it kind of looks like it's already running. What? How is somebody else using this PC? I don't really think that's gonna do anything, though. Oh, let's try a different computer. I did try this last night and it did work. So start with that. Emulate. No. No. Well, that is frustrating. Well, that is not. Is anybody else able to launch that? Is it working for anyone? I said to give everybody 5 minutes, so I'll just boot up the software. Is everybody here? It's really an annoying question because if you're not here, you can't tell me that you're not here.
I'm not here.
Hi.
You're not here in spirit, here in body, but not mind. I understand. This is it can be dry stuff, especially when
Hi.
there's.
Hey, Ryan, sorry. Do you want us to reboot the virtual machines as well?
You can do what you need to do. I'm gonna go through, kind of demonstrate what's going on in this lab. You can watch or you can reboot your machines to do it after I'm done. Once I kind of roughly go through the lab, I'm done, and I'm just going to be sitting here for questions while you guys work through your own labs. So if you were getting that error, my guess is that some other user previous to us today logged into these machines, launched the emulator, and then just simply signed out. So like I was saying earlier, these machines restart every day at midnight. So if you're the first person to log into the machine and launch the emulator, it looks like it locks the license to that user. And then the next person to log into the terminal creates a new instance, but there's still only one license per machine, is my guess. There's a dozen different ways that they could have done their licensing, but based on the evidence I have, that seems to be, yeah. So long story short on that, if it's not working, try turning it off and back on again. I hate saying that, but it seems to be what we need to do. So anyways, it looks like everybody's, maybe it's hard for me to tell if everybody's here. but I am recording. So once the RS Logix emulate launches, you'll see the emulator off to the side. This interface will emulate controllers. You can add in a new other controllers in different slots. So you could add in a new controller in slot 3 if you wanted to, with different firmware versions. We're using firmware 30, firmware revision 30. That's what this code is. There's a few spots that I could see that, just knowing that. So right here at the top, it says that the emulator is a 5570 version 30. If you launch, so inside your programming panel. So this is kind of your palette for logic. This is your kind of status. So you can see that we're offline here. If you click on that, you're going to open up your controller properties. And then by default, the general tab will tell you the revision, the name of the controller, how many slots the controller, or how many slot rack that the controller lives in, and what slot the controller lives in. So this says 10 slot, and we're in slot 0. This is actually 17 slot, so we might have an issue. Let's take a look at the lab tip. So AV PLC, this isn't gonna work for us because we're using the virtual chassis emulator. There we go. Has been started. Let's see. So this is RS Links. This is the driver software that allows your PLC software to communicate with your processors. This one has been pre-configured. You can see here AB virtual backplane, 17 slot rack. In slot 0, there is a processor that is running firmware version 30. So I think we're good to try a download, but I think this is what's going to fail. So when you are in your PLC software communications, who's online? This is going to open up Who Active, which is an RS Links interface. It looks exactly like this interface. You can see here, if the driver, if you can see it in RS Links Classic, the standalone interface, you should be able to navigate to it inside of the PLC software. When we drill down by hitting the plus menus, we can see this is the backplane. That's the controller. In slot 8, it says workstation RS Links server. That's this. My connection has been lost. Well, that's, wow. That was impressive. That was an interesting error. Anyways, the links server. That start up properly? Sure, let's try. So when you select your controller, you've got a couple of options. So go online. If you were to click go online, what it's going to try to do is go connect to the PLC and then compare the software that you have running in offline with the software that is on the PLC. So this is for emulate, this is for live PLCs. It's going to see what's on the controller. This warning we have right here says that there's a problem. So the controller connected, the controller name is version 30 installation test, the controller type, and the controller name for the software we have is A2148S18. I guess it's S1 to 8 simulate. So we don't have the same logic as is on the controller. So we can't go online. We're not close enough. So we can download to it. We can cycle through some information so we can see some date and time, possibly some major faults. If this were your controller in your facility and you you had the live software before and it won't allow you to go on, maybe you have some faults, you can get some information here. So we can either download, I'm going to cancel for now. We can go back here. We have two more options from this menu when we select it. So if go online doesn't work, you've got upload. So if you want to bring the controller, the software that's running on a PLC to your machine. So you are uploading from the controller, or you are taking your software from your computer and putting it to the PLC, you are downloading to the controller. This is very important to get because it's the opposite of the way most people think of how the internet works. Even when we're using the D2L software, when we want to take a file from the internet, we're downloading it to ourselves. And if you want to put a file on the internet, you're uploading to the internet. For whatever reason, back in the 70s, Alan Bradley did it this way, and then the internet came along. So it's backwards. If you're using other PLC softwares, some of them are the same way, some of them are the opposite way, some of them use different wording. So some will say transfer from PC to PLC, transfer from PLC to PC, transfer to RTU. So you need to pay attention and know which family, which version of processor, which software you're using, and what you're doing. Because if you download to the PLC, you have overwritten that software. And if you didn't have a copy of it, it is gone. So that is important to know. It's not in the notes. That is something if you're going to be working with PLCs in any facet, you need to sear that into your memory. You do not download to a PLC if you don't know what's on it and you're not 100% certain what you have is the live code for it. So we know that this controller is empty, so I'm going to download to it. The first thing the software is going to do is it's going to say, hey, I want to download to this controller. Are you sure you want to download to this controller? It's going to give you a bunch of warnings. If this were a live system with running pumps, with lights, with valves, safety equipment, anything that's on, so any digital outputs that are running, any analog outputs that are controlling a piece of device, a piece of equipment, they are going to turn off. You are going to lose monitoring. You're going to lose outputs for as long as this controller takes to download. Even if you're downloading the same program, whatever the state was of the program the last time you uploaded it, you will not have the same set points. So downloading to a live PLC, again, is risky. If you don't know what you're doing, don't download to live PLCs. Try to go online or upload the code. Downloading to them is a recipe for disaster. When you click download, it's going to transfer the files to the PLC. It'll finalize it. And it'll give a warning that it's completed. And now you can see that our status window at the top here has changed.
Ryan, just a quick question.
Yep.
Before downloading, are we able to upload the program that's in the PLC and save it into our laptop?
Yes. Yeah. So if there was nothing on this one, but if this is your facility, I 100% recommend you do that. Upload from the processor, save it into another directory. The problem that you might run into, and this will be hard for me to demonstrate because I don't have a lot of code here, but I'll try to, if you upload from a PLC and you don't have a copy of that PLC code in some version, maybe it's an older version of the code and somebody made a small change. If you upload without some sort of rubric, you will lose all your descriptions. So what I mean by that is, okay, this is a bad example. Darn it. I'm going to load up my VM and I'll show you what I mean by that, because I can show you a nightmare of a program and what I mean by descriptions. Not a super big deal with a program of this size because there's actually no descriptions in it anyway. But it can be a nightmare. But remind me to circle back to that in a bit, okay? So once we're online, you can see here that the status window changed and this says remote program and we can go to run. So most PLCs have, maybe all PLCs have a couple of states. So Allen Bradley specifically, and I'm going to speak to this. I'm going to say this is only for Allen Bradley because I don't remember every single other platform I've worked on. You have a key switch on the front of it, and you can put the program into remote program. Remote program means that you can get online with the controller and you can make online edits in program mode. You can tell it's in program mode by this cyan color here, and it says remote program. If the key switch on the controller were turned to the program state, the PLC, you can get online and make programming edits, but you can't run it. So the logic will not run. So if the key switch is in remote, you can actually force the processor into run mode. And now it's executing logic. And then if the key switch were in run mode, you cannot make programming changes to it. So if you have a controller and you try to get online with it, and then you can't make changes, you can't double click and get into any of the editing features of the code, it's possible that the key switch on the front of it is actually in run mode, and that is preventing you from doing that. A lot of manufacturing lines, those key switches will be left in run mode so people can't make changes on the fly. It's a little bit of a protection, but it makes programming kind of a pain in the ass because if you don't have one of those keys or you have remote access to the machine, you actually have to have somebody walk up to it and put it into remote or into remote from run to get access to it. Depends on the level of safety and who has access. That gets into a networking thing. So I digress. I apologize. Okay. We've successfully downloaded to the emulation PLC. We're online. We can now see when we monitor tags, there are things, data can change. We will see live data. Actually, we won't. There's nothing changing just yet. Let me launch the visual interface. So like that tech note or the lab note before, I've double clicked on the APA it's launched the application manager and it wants to restore it. Sorry. This is a backup. And it's the only way to package these up to transfer the files around. So we select next. And I think it said to rename it like your last name or something. So Costello 1. So the manager will unpack that. That's going to get you your graphics, your tag files, and create a project for you. Once it's completed, we're then going to launch Factory Talk View Studio, and then select Machine Edition. And that's the editing software for the Allen Bradley touchscreens. And then we want Machine Edition. So that's specifically for the touchscreens. These other ones are for computer-based interfaces. When you first launch it, it's going to ask you what one you want to launch. I just created this one called Costello 1. It kind of tells you what it is. It's a panel view plus 1500. Select open. Yeah, the software doesn't match. Right. So the software editing interface looks very similar to other software editing interfaces. So same with the PLC, you've kind of got your navigation bar down the left. There's system statuses. This gets into some tagging and startup stuff. Tag listings, graphics. So this is where you're going to see. This is where you would make modifications to the displays if you were changing them. Close it. And then up here, you see test application. We're just going to click on that. It's going to take the project. It's going to create a runtime version of it. And then it's going to launch that runtime version of it. The communications are already set up to point at the emulation processor. So once it opens, remember how earlier when I launched it, there was a bunch of circles and X's and question marks? Well, now those graphics are working. So we don't have an alarm saying comms are down. We don't have missing information. That is very loud and irritating. So somebody set this up to make dings every time you click on something, and that is super annoying. So yeah, so now we're online with it. And as we click these, sorry, that is very frustrating. And I know who programmed this to do that, and I think he's a jerk. That's an aside. So as you click through, you can see some data entry locations. What you guys need to do is when you're online with the controller, there are some input and output tables here. So as you go through and find, whoops, the layout. So this layout matches your graphical interface in a way. So it's a conveyor system where parts move in here and they get diverted, accepted, rejected. We've got some push buttons down here. These push buttons have IO tags associated with them. And as excuse me, I believe it was Mike pointed out, there is a station 1 through 8 IO list. So there's IO lists and there's IO drawings. So slot 2, that's going to be local card 2, local module 2. If you're in yesterday's class, modules, slots, cards, those terms are used interchangeably. So when you're looking at drawings, you'll see here, this is a 24-volt DC input card. This is a 24-volt DC output card. This is the IO layout for them. So which slot, which point, it's a push button 6PB3, and we've got some read switches, which is just like a proximity sensor. Not read switches aren't proximity sensors, but they're switches to indicate something's there. So REED, they're actually metal plates that touch one another. They're essentially switches. Solenoid valves for outputs. So use the IO drawings, use the lab sheet, and navigate your way through the software, finding these local input positions and the push buttons on the interface. It's going to tell you to turn on specific tags, find those tags, turn them on, and see what happens inside the interface, and write the answers down in the lab sheet. Does that make sense? Sorry if that seems a little anticlimactic, but when you're done with this, you should know how to download to these emulator PLCs and get one of these touch screens running, pointed to the emulator PLC, and you'll be able to go through and find some of these input points. And then when you get to the input point, if you want to turn one on, if it's 0, just hit 1 on your keyboard and then enter, and then it'll turn to 1. Since it's a simulated PLC, there's not actually inputs there to trigger anything. There is some, I'm going to use the word magic going on in the background with some aliasing with the interface, so that when we do go into here and we see IO input 26, so if we look here, input 26 is off, but we hit e-stop, input 26 is on. We turn on power, so input 15 or 25. It's on. So in the logic somewhere, it looks like it's latched on, but if we hit e-stop, the power turns off. So investigate the code with your interface, play around with it and see what happens. You'll notice you've got channel 0, you've got some analog inputs as well. Those are going to line up with some of the other tags inside the PLC program. Once you've filled out your tag sheet, there's a direction as to how to save them and submit them to me. And if you wanted to play around some and see how these screens are configured, you just end the simulation by Xing out, and you can actually open up the screens and see what's going on behind there. So station sim, oh, wrong one. I don't recommend playing around with the graphics until after you've done the lab, because if you do open up this screen or this button to take a look at what's going on and make a change, you might not be able to figure out the lab. You can always re-download the software again. Might be a pain in the butt. So as you're looking through the touchscreen interface, what you'll see is an object explorer off to the side. So group 1 is everything inside of this gray box. You can see kind of these cursor boxes, just like when you click on like an image in Word. You can expand this out and you can see what that entity is. So it's a maintained push button. If you double click on the maintain push button, you can actually see how it's set up. It's got multiple states, kind of some configuration information on what the states are, and connection. So what it's actually pointed to inside the PLC. So you can see here, it's pointed at an instance called PLC and then 1.6. So you can see that that is, for example, looking at 1.6. This is similar to what you would see if you had like a Logix 500 or a Micro Logix, only when you would dig through your touchscreen, you'd be looking at N7, F8, different register data table files. This is all tag based. Yeah. Are there any questions? I'm sure. Some.
Yeah,
If
with me
not,
being
pardon?
sorry, with me being a tool and die maker, you're gonna this is recorded, so I'm gonna be able to watch this a couple times.
Yeah, absolutely. So once I'm done, what I've been doing on Tuesday, and is this working for you guys on Tuesday, the way I've been doing it? So once I end this meeting, it converts to MP4. I've been able to load, up until yesterday, I was able to load them right into D2L. Yesterday, for some reason, it wouldn't take my file. So I actually created a playlist on my like YouTube account and I threw it up there. So did that work for anyone who was trying to find it yesterday? And does that work moving forward? Would you rather the file on D2L or YouTube?
I wasn't here on Tuesday, but I preferred on YouTube. I think that'd be easier to find.
I agree. I was asking. Yeah, I know you weren't, Martin. There's a number of people who are in both classes. I'll try to do both. I'm not sure why. YouTube works perfect. There's 2. That's consensus. I'll try to do both. I don't know what was going on with D2L. It started acting funny on me yesterday, but yeah, you'll have the reading material on D2L. You'll have my recording, all the lab information. And if you've got questions, send me some emails. I'll do my best. Again, this is my part-time gig. I work full-time with the city, so I'll do my best to respond to emails as I can. But yeah, I'm here to help as much as I can. If you guys want to, I can stop sharing my screen. If you guys want to start trying to work through the lab while I'm connected, I might go use the washroom and refill my water, but I'll be here until 9 or even a little later if you have any questions.
Okay, so I looked at your week 3 upload video.
Yep.
And it's set to private and I can't see it.
See, I've never done YouTube-y things. Okay, I'm gonna go get some more water and then I'm gonna work on changing that, and then I'll try to get that changed before 9 o'clock. But thank you. But when you click the link from the whatchamacallit, D2L, it does take you there.
No, it just takes me to the YouTube homepage.
Oh, okay. does it show you this at all? Or does it show you nothing?
On that page, it just says video is unavailable. This video is private.
Okay, so then so because I'm logged in, it's letting me do it. All right. So then I should be able to figure that out. Do that offline. All right, well, I'm gonna stop sharing and pause my video for now. And you guys can get working on your lab. I'm gonna step away for a couple of minutes. I'll be right back. Yeah, so Eddie, so your question about why the IO is not responding is because we're in emulate mode. So because we're in emulate mode, we don't actually have those cards. So you can see here in the IO tree, when you scroll down, you actually have IO configuration. And then you've got a whole bunch of cards that have these exclamation triangles. So if you go in and you want the IO not responding to go away, if you right click on any of the offending cards and go to the connection tab and click inhibit module, what that will do is actually stop it from trying to communicate with those modules, and that alarm will go away. We don't have, it's not an alarm because it's actually not faulting the controller. So if you watch me doing it, you don't need to do this. It's because
Okay.
we don't have live IO.
So then how did you manage to get it into the mode where basically if I click like a power on button or something, it highlights on the controller tags, it highlights the controller tag, which controller tag has been activated.
Oh, like this?
Yeah.
So you can't, so if you want to highlight a specific one, you just have to click this rung or click on them. When I clicked my graphical interface to turn them on, all I was doing to get it highlighted was clicking so you could see what I was pointing at.
Okay.
It won't do that dynamically. I was just trying to highlight what I was demonstrating by clicking on the touch screen. And then like the flip side of that, like if you were to change these values here, your graphical change is going to happen and it's going to be more noticeable on the touch screen than a 1 and a 0 flopping positions inside the controller.
Inside.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, one of the things that's kind of might throw you for a loop is because we don't have cards. There's a little bit of what do I call it? Magic happening in the background. So we're actually taking a tag called I2, and the touchscreen is actually interfacing with I2, which is being aliased to the cards because they're being simulated. So that is something, if you did see that under edit, that is something for the alias here for card 2 that is unusual, and you typically won't see that in a live PLC. This is some simulation magic that's being used to make these interfaces work because we don't have live PLCs. Does that help? Sorry. Yep. Go.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then once I inhibited all of those cards, you can see mine just says IO not present because there is no IO. The emulation PLC is it's designed to run like this. One of the things that would happen is in real life, like if we were live and I go to properties, go to connection, if I unclick inhibit module, you'll see here that this will say IO not responding. and we do have an alarm. So depending on how your controller is set up, how your system needs to be configured, that could actually fault a controller. So here is a setting that in the real world, you need to be sure you want on. So major fault on controller if connection fails while in run mode. So that means that if you enable this, if I were to hit apply, and I think it'll give me a warning or two, and then that card is gone, we're gonna fault the controller. So you can see here, red is bad. So red means the controller's faulted. It's no longer executing code. It's no longer, it can see inputs. It's not as bad as a program mode where absolutely nothing's running, but the controller is no longer executing code. So the configuration of cards to fault the controller if they go missing is something that you need to really weigh the benefits of, weigh the necessity of over the frustration of faulting your controller.
Okay,
There's
that
an
makes
aside.
sense. Yeah, got it. So for the lab itself, I think there is like more like fill in the blanks, I think.
Yep.
And then it also requires us to fill out a table.
Yep. So just what we want to do is just learn how to download, navigate the PLCs. Your controller tags are one of the most important piece of the 5000 environment is how to create tags, how to look at tags, how to monitor tags. This is your database. If you've ever done any other programming, this is where all the information for your controller lives and is configured. So knowing how to create tags, knowing how to monitor tags, how to edit them, very important. All the other lessons are going to build on this, and with the touch screen that's built hand in hand as we move through, at least as far as I've been able to review. Again, this is the first time I've run this course, so I've only been able to review a couple weeks. We're going to be building on very similar programs. So we need to get, week one is just get familiar. And there's a small quiz just to make sure that you guys can submit a quiz. Yeah.
So for this, for the lab itself, is it just required that we go through it, and anything that needs to be answered, we submit like a Word document or a PDF saying, okay, like for question H, this is the value, question I, this is the answer I, this is the value, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure it says how to name it, where to submit it, fill in these documents. So stop push button, what's the address for the inputs, when you're looking at the IO files, when you change your data, what happens here for the addresses, submit a screenshot, week one simulator PNG, that you were able to get things up and running, and then throw those on D2L. Does everybody know how to do a screenshot?
Yeah.
Oh, I see a chat. Oh, my chat is closed. Yes. All right. Perfect. I would recommend, how would you do that? If you're connected into the control, the remote session. Wow, that was annoying. and you restore down, you can move it around, and then you can do your like snippet from your local one, and then you might not need to save things around in weird spots. Yeah, you could do that. Does that answer your question, Addie?
Yeah, that's good. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hey, Ryan.
Hello.
Hey, got a couple of questions.
Yep.
At some point you were trying to extract, was that from the 82148 visual interface?
So which point?
After downloading the PLC software itself, then I think you went to the yellow one.
This one?
Yeah, that one. What did you do? Did you?
So I just I double clicked on it.
Okay.
I think this is in, it's gonna open up the ME application manager,
Yeah.
and then it's going to ask you for a new name to name your application. So I called mine Costello 1.
Okay.
And then in Factory Talk View Studio, when you launch Machine Edition application, you'll have a window where it'll ask you to open it. I think this is in, yeah. Is it in this one? No, it's in 5. Lab tip 5. Yeah. So it goes through step by step here in lab tip 5, what files to open, extract the visual interface here, replace the name. It use 01 Christine.
Mhm. All right, thanks. I'll just go through that. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem.